Okay, so in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this lovely basic simple skater dress. We're going to use the bodice and the full circle skirt to do this. As you can see, we've got a few images here just to show you what that style looks like. So obviously we're on this tutorial page here. It's great. There are some requirements that you need when it comes to producing this let's say pattern. We use the bodice block and we use the full circle skirt block, and we have some various, let's say, some various attributes we have to assign to those blocks in order to produce it. So we have obviously bodice block, waist shaping, yes, custom fit. We have a certain amount of busties and waisties, which is all based on percentages of your actual waist and bust measurement. We'll come to that a little bit later. We have obviously no seam front, classic style dart iteration, back, no seam, mid-shoulder, sleeve isn't needed, and obviously the purchase, which is an E pattern. Same for the full circle skirt. So have a look at this. There's also, this is quite important as well, cutting table and PDF pattern pack. This simply allows you, the cutting table is essentially a space where you can, let's say, pattern cut or draft or amend your patterns, and we have a little key in there that gives you little attributes you can add to your pattern that keeps them consistent and also helps with our tutorials. And the PDF pattern pack is simply some blank templates, some blank A4 to A0, A0, A1, A2, A3, A4, and US letter size pattern packs, which you can basically transfer your finished pattern onto and then print off at home and stick them together, so you can obviously create your finished block or print it out at home. Okay, so what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to basically create we're gonna create these blocks. Okay, so we're gonna use the bodice block and the full circle skirt block. So I'm just gonna go into the lab. Let's just create a new window so we can come back to this later. Let's go into the lab. Obviously, it's a good idea if you're logged in, because it means you'll have your own personal library of these blocks that you're creating, and it'll make it much easier for you to find those blocks. So I suggest creating an account and logging in if you're new to Pattern Lab. And also, if you are new to Pattern Lab, you probably want to create your own personal profile with your own unique measurements, so you're creating blocks that accurately fit your body. Obviously, I've created a few already, and we have a tutorial that shows you how to do that, and it'll be listed at the bottom of this page. Okay, right down at the very, very bottom, you'll see you'll have a few more additional tutorials. We're going to add a few more in here. Okay, so yes, so as I said, I've created a profile, and we can go and edit that if you like with all the measurements, and we also have a video that shows you how to take your measurements and fill out this chart accurately. So let's just click done. You can also choose a standard size. If you want to get straight into pattern cutting with Adobe Illustrator or manual pattern cutting, you can just simply choose a standard size by clicking that link. And as you can see here, you've got bust, waist and hip, and you can select the size that fits you closely, or most closely. That's not a word, but so you have, for example, size 10, you've got 88 centimeters, 72, 96, and if you can click this button, you'll see a whole load more measurements there, which you can compare yourself to. Let's go show less. So we can, let's say, select the UK 10, click on that, and it'll obviously input it into the lab. But I'm going to work with Francesca because I know this profile is perfect. And here we're going to go to, so we have some selections here. Let's go to the bodice. So we're going to create this block first of all. Now I've already created this block, so I'm just going to, let me clear all these. There we go. So we're going to start from fresh. This is what you should see. So let's just go choose a profile, Francesca, bodice, and then we have our block. We're going to go for the bodice block. Click on this, and then we go next. And you see it's already starting to generate that pattern. So as per the information on this page here, so the requirements, we're going to go waist shaping, yes, and we're going to go choose fit, custom. Okay, see, custom fit. There we go. And we have the busties is 6.81% of the bust measurement, and the waisties is 4.1% of the waist measurement. If you don't know what ease is, as I said, have a look at that tutorial about becoming a pro using the lab, and I'll explain all of those concepts to you. But so the ease I'm going to enter for custom, just to make this block nice, basically very close fitting to the body to create that really lovely silhouette. I'm going to use custom ease, and I'm going to use 6.81 of the bust and 4.1 of the waist. So 6.81% of Francesca's bust, which is 88 centimeters. The bust is 88 centimeters. It's going to be 6.81, which works out to be about 6 centimeters, and the waist is going to be 3. So that's 4.1%, which is 3 centimeters. Okay, so once we've got our eases and you've figured them out, we're just going to click next. And now we have designing the front of our block. So let's just go, if you have a look, we have no seam classic, so no seam, and then classic block. Let's just go next. And we're going to go for the back, we're going to go no seam, and we're going to go mid-shoulder. Okay, this is all on that blog page. We don't actually need a sleeve, but you get one with your block anyway, and these blocks are not specific to this tutorial. Once you've got your block, you can pretty much use that bodice block for pretty much anything. So it's good to have the sleeve as well. Let's just click next. And now we have the download or the purchase screen. Now, I use centimeters because I'm in the UK in London. And so I'm going to stick with 1 cm. You can obviously change these values. You can add a custom value, and you can also change between the measurement type. I know this block fits exceptionally well, so I'm going to go for 1 cm. I don't need to do many adjustments. And I'm going to go for the e-pattern download. Okay, not the PDF, but the e-pattern download. And you can read a little bit more about what an e-pattern download is, or e-pattern purchase. I'm going to click add to cart. Yeah, there's nothing in my cart, good. I'm just going to add that to my cart. And next, so we've got our bodice, which is great. We've done this section here, and we've put on all the attributes we need. Next, we want to do the full circle skirt block. We need to obviously add these attributes. So once again, the fit is going to be custom. The waist ease is going to be 4.1, so it matches the waist of the bodice. So this measurement here and this measurement are exactly the same, okay? Because they both run off your waist measurement. So just add the same amount of ease for both, and you should be fine. Let's go back to the lab. So let's go to skirts, and then here we have this full circle or the semicircle. You can use either or for this one. It's completely up to you. I'm going to go for the full circle because I want quite a lot of volume. So I'm going to click this block, click next. I'm going to go for custom ease like the bodice, and I'm going to enter my waist. And remember, it was, what was it, 4.1 of my waist measurement? Oh, sorry, 4.1% of my waist measurement was 3 centimeters. I'm going to click next, and that's going to match our bodice. So next we're going to go for the knee length because I want a classic skater dress. You could save on material and go for a thigh length, make it a little bit shorter, or you could go full on and go for your floor length. I'm going to go knee. Okay. You can also add a custom length as well if you decide to do that. And next we're going to go click the next button. And now we have an option between waistbands. Now because we're joining this to the bodice block eventually, we don't want an internal waistband or an external waistband. But if you want to maybe make this skirt separately, then obviously you can select one of these. Well, I'm going to go no waistband. Click next. Next we have seam allowance. So once again, I'm going to leave it at 1 cm, keep it consistent with my bodice block. And I'm going to go for the e-pattern download. So I'm going to add that to my cart. Okay, now once again, these blocks are not just for this tutorial. You can use them for pretty much anything or any number of our tutorials. Okay, it's up to you. So I'm just going to go to my checkout. Click that button. Now, because I'm an admin, and to speed up the process of this tutorial, obviously no payment is required. You would obviously have to go through the payment process via PayPal. But this gives you a little bit of confirmation about your order. So it tells you what profile you're using, all the various different attributes, which is obviously listed here, and obviously for the skirt, and the seam allowances involved, etc. As I said, if you have a look at the Becoming a Pro in the Lab blog post, you will and tutorial, you'll understand all of this in advance. So I'm just going to click Read terms and conditions. Obviously have a look at our terms and conditions. It just explains a little bit about what you can do with these patterns. They're all pretty much royalty free, but just have a little read just to make sure you're familiar with what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do with them. I'm just going to click confirm, and here is my order page, and you can always get to this by going to my account and then my orders. So in here you can see your invoice, you've got your orders, etc. And so here we have, let's say it's an e-pattern. It's profile Francesca, and this is the bodice block, and this is the sleeve block. We're actually going to consolidate this into one item, so you won't see these two preview buttons, but they're separate for now. And we have the full circle skirt. So first of all, I'm going to go for my bodice block. I'm going to preview and download it. So this is obviously a live preview of the block, which is looking really nice. If you have any issues with your measurements or it's looking a bit odd, you can always go in and edit your measurements. Which will bring up that profile page again. And you can also look at our troubleshooting guides. So possibly the block is looking really unusual. You can have a look at our troubleshooting guides, which will help you fix those problems. But hopefully you've already created your block, you've tested it, and you're happy with the fit, and now you're on to creating some really cool designs. So at this point, I'm happy with my block. I'm just going to go download, and I'm going to save that on my desktop. I'm going to create a folder. I've already created it. So skater dress, Francesca 3C. And I've actually already downloaded these two blocks. So I'm just going to rename them. Okay, you can rename them here. So Francesca 3C bodice, skater dress. I'm not going to save that because I already have it. Let's just click close, and let's go to our full circle skirt, preview and download. Once again, looking good. It's a very simple pattern, so you shouldn't have any issues with this one. Once again, you can troubleshoot, or you can then edit your measurements. I'm just going to click download. Once again, same folder. I'm going to rename it to Francesca 3C skirt skater dress. I'm going to click, well, I'm not going to click save because I already have it saved, and click cancel. Okay, so that's pretty much your 2 blocks that you need to produce this draft. So you have the bodice and you have the skater dress with all the attributes that you need, which is great. Next, I'm going to go back to my blog page, which is here, or the tutorial page, and I'm going to click this cutting table and PDF pattern pack. Okay, and what this does is, I'm just going to save it to the same folder, so desktop, skater dress Francesca, cutting table PDF print patterns, template, sorry. Let's just save that. Great, so that's saved into my folder. So I'm just going to basically shut this page down. I'm then going to go into that folder on my desktop. Where is it? Here we go. And I'm just going to basically open up that zip file, unpack those files. I'm going to get rid of my existing zip file and go into my cutting table and PDF printout. So as you can see here, we have our cutting table. Now this is the thing we're going to open up first, and we're going to use to basically amend or adjust our patterns to create this skater pattern. Sorry, amend our basic blocks to create the skater pattern. So I'm just going to open up the cutting table. And we're going to come back to those PDF templates later when we've actually finished our pattern and how they actually operate. But at least you have them saved on your computer somewhere. Okay, so this is the cutting table, and essentially all it is just a really big page where you can pretty much construct your patterns. Let's just zoom into that key. So as I mentioned before, the cutting table is not only a large area for you to amend your patterns, but we also have this little key which makes your blocks consistent. So when we come to finishing our blocks, we're going to add elements such as notches, fold lines, grain lines, guidelines, and also points help us, let's say, measure parts of the block and create different necklines, and I'll show you that very shortly. This is for, let's say, our purposes. All we do is it basically just gives us a little fill so you can see what the blocks actually look like. And you know what would be the paper part of the block, but you'll see that in a minute. A few things to mention: we have a tutorial that shows you how to pattern cut using the Adobe Illustrator platform. It's in our courses on the basics. It's one of the basic courses, so please have a look at that first of all. It shows you all the tools, techniques, and tricks we use to pattern cut in Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator is an amazing package that allows you to do so much. I don't have a huge amount of space, so developing patterns on my screen is a very, very space-saving way of pattern cutting, and it's very accurate. It's beautiful, in fact. So I recommend you really get into it. It's really good fun, and definitely worth the Adobe Illustrator package price. Anyway, so this is our cutting table, which is looking awesome. I'm then just going to go File, Open, and I'm going to pull my blocks up. So I've got the bodice, and I've got the skirt block. So let's just select both of these and click Open. Smashing. Okay, so let's show you a few controls. So first of all, if you hold down the space key in Adobe Illustrator and then click and drag, it allows you to move around the screen quite effortlessly, which is great. Also, if you hold down the Command with a Mac or Control key and hit minus and plus, you can zoom in and out. So these navigation tools combined gives you a very quick and easy way to move around your screen. Okay, Command plus, Command minus, spacebar, click and drag. So I'm just going to get my big selection tool. I'm going to click on this pattern, and I'm just going to go Edit, Copy, go to my cutting table, and then let's just zoom out, Command minus, 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 and then paste my pattern in. Okay, let's just place it about here. We're going to use that one a little bit later on. Next, we're going to go to the bodice, so I can actually close this down. Save it, because it's always, you can use it for other patterns or sewing tutorials in the future, or pattern cutting tutorials in the future. Now we have our bodice, so I'm going to go to my big selection tool. I'm going to click on that block, hold down the Shift key, and click on the other block, and that basically queues up your selection. Otherwise, you can click and drag over both of them, and it will select them both. Edit, Copy. We can then close that and go to our pattern cutting table and just go Edit, Paste. Okay, so now essentially we've put our patterns on our table in front of us, okay, like we would in real life. Great, so I'm now going to adjust these so it's a bit clearer for you guys. So this is the whole pattern to show you what the actual pattern is, because it's all just line art at the moment. So I'm going to get my small selection tool, click, I'm going to click on the back pattern, hold down the Shift key, click on the front pattern, then go to my eyedropper tool And if you click and hold, if you maybe see the measure tool, you might see one of these two. If you see the measurement tool like that, just click and hold and go eyedropper tool. And then I'm going to basically, these have obviously been selected. I'm going to click on this, and what it does is the eyedropper takes the attributes of whatever you click it on. So let's go to the eyedropper tool and then click it on this, for example. It'll take the attributes of that line, which is really handy. But let's go back. Pattern. There we go. So that's our bodice pattern. We'll do the same for the skirt. Just going to get my eyedropper tool, click on pattern. So if we zoom out, you can see there's our pattern. Looking great. Okay, so first of all, we're going to work on our bodice block. So I'm going to get my big selection tool, click. I'm just going to click and then drag over to the left. Holding down the shift key allows you to move it along the horizontal axis, the vertical axis, vertical axis, and the diagonal axis. So it locks it. Otherwise, if you don't hold down the shift key, you can put it anywhere. So I would say click, hold down the shift key and drag it over to the right. That will keep your bust lines lined up nicely. Alright, so let's begin designing this neckline. Okay, let's make a really beautiful, interesting neckline. Essentially, if you were to, let's say, print these patterns out now, you would have a basic skater block. It would just have this neckline, okay, which is different to the one in this tutorial. So this already makes up a basic skater block. But we want to develop this neckline to make it really pretty and quite classic. So if we go back to our blog page, as you can see here, this is essentially our pattern. And let's click through these images. So as you can see, we've got this really nice little scoop down the back here. And we've also got these really two beautiful little pleats, okay? So I'm going to show you how to create this neckline. It's slightly wider and it's slightly higher at the front, and there's about 5 to 6 cm on the shoulder, okay? And it's completely up to you how you want to design your neckline. This is just a simple example. So to create that concept, I'm going to first of all grab a point. So this is, go to your key, get your big selection tool, click on that point, go edit, copy, and then let's just go edit, paste. Okay, that's my point. So I'm going to basically place this. I'm going to hover on the center of this. I'm going to place it at the shoulder point. I'm going to paste a new one in, and I'm going to place it at the other shoulder point. So what we're going to do is essentially manual pattern cutting. We want to measure from this point to along the shoulder line to find where that neck's going to start. So I want it to be about 5 to 6 centimeters. Okay, so our neckline will be something like this. But I want to find how far on that shoulder, from the shoulder point, I want to take this. So let's just go to the big selection tool. Let's click. Let's hit the enter key on my keyboard, which brings up the move dialog. Let's take off preview for now. Now I want to move horizontally to the right, so from here to here, by about, let's put it as 5 centimeters. Okay, I've decided that is going to be the width of the strap. Okay, and I'm going to go 0 vertically. I'm going to hit copy. And so what that does is simply sends your point off to the right by 5 centimeters. I'm then going to go to my rotation tool. So let's click and hold. If you see the reflect tool possibly, like that, just click and hold and select rotation. I'm then going to click, you see how this is selected? I'm going to click on that center point, which brings up a little blue marker. And then if I do that, I can rotate it all the way around. What that does is I'm constraining the distance from here to here is 5 centimeters all the way around. So if I move it up to my shoulder line, that is guaranteed to be 5 centimeters, which is great. I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. I'm going to get my big selection tool. I'm going to click on this point. I'm going to hit the enter key on my keyboard, but this time I'm going to go minus 5 centimeters. Now what that does is minus takes the point to the left and plus takes the point to the right. Okay, so we want to go minus 5 centimeters and hit copy. Next, once again, that's still selected. I'm going to go to my rotation tool. I'm going to click on that shoulder point and rotate to that shoulder line. Actually, I've forgotten something. Before we do that, essentially we need to close this dart. But we don't need to do that because essentially our shoulder does not actually, it's out of the way of the dart. I'm just hard to explain that. So I'm just going to simply do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our key. I'm going to, big selection tool, I'm going to click my guideline. And then I'm going to go to my line tool up here. And if you can't see it, it might be one of these. Just click and hold. Line segment tool. I'm going to click and draw a line from the side neck point to the shoulder point, and that's our guideline. Now that's essentially the same shoulder slope as if that dart was closed. Okay, just take my word for that. Next, we're going to go to our big selection tool. I'm going to click on that point, click on my rotation tool, and I'm going to click and drag until it meets that line. Okay, we're basically removing this back dart because we just don't need it, because it's going to be taken out with the back line. But we need to make sure we have the shoulder angle correct. So now we know where our neckline starts on the front and also on the back. But what about the the back neck drop and also the front neck drop? In other words, where we want our neckline to begin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this point. I'm going to edit, copy, edit, paste. There we go. I'm going to click and drag that and take it over to the center front. And I've decided that I want maybe the neckline to be slightly higher than the neck point, or the center neck point. So I'm going to click on this item, big selection tool. I'm going to click on that point, and I'm going to go, right, I want it to be minus 2.5 cm up from the existing neckline. Copy. Okay, that's where our new neckline is going to be, from here to here, which is fantastic. So I'm just going to draw a line from this point to this point. That's our new neckline, and we can shape it a little bit later on, but that's just a guide. Next, I'm going to go to my back, and I'm going to go, right, well, let's have a look at our diagram here. So the back has got quite a nice V, so maybe that's about, probably the nape's here. We're going to go down maybe about 12 to 15 centimeters. So let's have a look. So I'm going to grab that point. I'm going to edit, copy, edit, paste, so that's probably already in my clipboard. I'm going to click and then drag it over to that nape of the neck on my pattern, my back pattern. I'm then going to select it. I'm going to hit my Enter key on my keyboard, go 0 for horizontal, because we're not going left or right. We're going down by about 12 centimeters. Let's go down by 12. And as you can see, 12 takes the point down, minus 12 takes the point up, which is way up on the screen up here somewhere, you can't see it. So we want to go down, so we get positive 12 to go down. There you go. Yeah, that looks good. I'm happy with that. It's quite a nice, it's almost like a 45-degree angle. It's quite a nice slope. So I'm just going to draw a line between those 2 points. I'm going to go to my line tool. I'm going to click and drag from point to point. Looking lovely. Really nice. Okay, so these are my 2 provisional necklines, let's say. So, first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shape these necklines, because I don't want it straight, I want it a nice curve. So I'm going to go to my pen tool, which is right over here. I'm going to click and hold, and at the bottom here you can see the anchor point tool. I'm going to click, and it gives you this little V-shaped tool here. I'm going to click on this point, I'm going to click and hold, and then drag. And what this does is, it gives us like a curved line tool, which is fun. So I can create a really interesting neckline if I want, like that perhaps, although it might look a bit weird. But essentially, I want to create a nice, smooth, curving neckline. Now, it's really important to note that this should always, if you have a fold line on your garment, like so, we're going to mirror image anything on a fold line. So let's just reflect this. Don't worry about what I'm doing at the moment, that's fine. Just like so. You want it to be pretty much 90-degree angle, so it'll create a nice, smooth curve when you actually come to transpose it or fold it out. If I was to have a neckline like that, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get something that looks a bit like that, which is really odd, okay? Because it's going to be quite difficult to sew this. You can do that if you want to. That might be a nice design idea for you. But I would say, for the purpose of this tutorial, let's just keep it nice and simple. So I'm going to go to, let's go back. So this is my provisional line. I'm going to go to my pen tool, click and hold, go to my anchor point tool, click, and then drag. Okay, now I need to kind of get this horizontal. It might actually lock in place, but if you hold down the shift key, it automatically aligns it horizontally. And then I'm just going to drag that out until I get a really nice smooth curve. So you can play around with that function. Okay, that's my neck. My front neck curve is looking lovely. Let's now go to my back. Now I want to have a little bit of a point here. So it's not going to be, let's go to my anchor point tool, click on that point and drag. You know, if I was to, let's say, use the shift key and move it out, that would give us a really nice smooth curve on the back. If I wanted a bit more of a point, I would maybe do that. But that's a very shallow point. So if I take it to somewhere about there, there we go. We've got a nice smooth curve for the back. Oops. And we've got a nice point at the bottom here. So that's looking lovely. I'm really happy. And you can see here we're pretty much removing that dart completely, which is why we don't no longer need it really. Okay, so now I've got my provisional necklines. I need to get rid of my existing block and draw in the new neckline, because at the moment they're just lines. We need to actually create our block. So I'm going to get my small selection tool. I'm going to click on the front. I'm then going to go to my cut tool, which is here. It's also the eraser or knife tool. So if you have it on knife, click and hold scissor tool. I'm then going to go to the front of my block, and then going to cut at this point just by clicking and cut at this point. Now as you can see, this block is completely separate, which is great. So I'm then going to take this block, and you know what, I'm going to give it a guideline because I want to see what's there. Okay, I want to keep it as like a guideline so I know what my existing block looked like. And to do that, just going to small selection tool, select that upper panel, go to my guideline, go to the dipper tool or the eyedropper tool, and then click on that line, and it takes the attributes, and there you go, that's my guideline, which is great. So next I want to basically join this line to this line and this point to this point, okay, to give us a nice looking block with the blue fill. So to do this, I'm just going to get rid of some redundant points that we don't really need anymore, which are these. So I'm just going to go to my big selection tool, click that point, hit the backspace, click that point, backspace, just to delete those, get them out of the way. Also, this is going to get a little bit annoying as well, it's going to get in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my small selection tool, I'm going to click on that line, and I'm going to go Object, Lock. Oh wait, sorry, Object, click on the line, Object, Lock, Selection. So now I can't select it at all, which is great, but I can select the other elements. Okay, just keeps it out of the way for you. So first of all, let's join these two. I'm going to click and drag over these 2 points. There you go. I'm then going to right click and go Join. As you can see, this line didn't actually have a blue fill, so when I've joined those 2 lines together, it's basically used the attributes of this line. Okay, so that's why the fill's gone, but we can get that back later. Next, I'm going to hit my small selection tool, I'm going to click on that end point, not the line, but the end point, click and drag it up until those 2 points join or intersect. I'm then going to click and drag over those 2 points, right click, join. So that's now my block, my new block with a new neckline nicely as one item. Next, I'm going to select that line with my small selection tool, go to my eyedropper, and then grab the attributes of my pattern. Now as you can see, we've lost all of this information, and the reason why is because Adobe Illustrator works in layers. So at the moment, this is the very, very top of all the layers because it's the most edited, it's the most recently edited item. So we want to basically send this to the bottom. So I'm going to basically go to my big selection tool, click here, click on this block, and I'm going to go Object, Arrange, Center Back. And there you go. So all the information is now there because my pattern is now on the very, very bottom, and all the information is on top of it. Okay, so let's do exactly the same but to the back neckline. So this is my new neckline. I want to get rid of all the other information. So first of all, let's get rid of these points. Big selection tool, click, delete, click, oop, not the pattern, click, delete, click, delete, click, delete. Also I'm going to get rid of this guideline, don't really need that, delete that. And now I'm going to get my block, so get the small selection tool, which selects individual elements, rather than the big selection tool, which selects everything. Small selection tool, select this, then I'm going to cut at this shoulder point, and I'm going to cut at the back neckline. I'm then going to get my eyedropper tool, because it's still selected, and click guideline, and that creates, so I'm keeping that original information there, but I'm not going to be using it. Once again, let's just lock this. So I'm going to get my small selection tool, click, Object, Lock, Selection. And that's now out of the way. Next, I'm going to click with my small selection tool. I'm going to click and drag over these 2 points. I'm going to right click, Join. Once again, it's picked up the attributes of this line, but that's fine. And I want to join these 2 points as well. So I'm just going to, they look like they're joined, but they're not. See? They're not joined. So I'm just going to select those 2 points by clicking and dragging with the small selection tool, and then right click and then join. Great. I'm then going to go to my eyedropper tool, and I'm just going to scroll up and then go right, pattern. There we go, that's my pattern, looking lovely. But once again, Adobe Illustrator works in a layer system, so we want to send that to the very, very back. So let's go to the small selection tool, click on that, go to Object, Arrange, Center Back. And there we go. As you can see, we're kind of missing this little bit of information here is kind of falling off our new pattern. So I just want to basically pull that back onto here. So go to your big selection tool, click on it. But as you can see, we're selecting all of the block because it's grouped. The whole block has been grouped together so we can make it easy to move around. See, they're all grouped. So what we want to do is basically ungroup that whole bunch of selections. So go Object, so big selection tool, click on, Object, ungroup. I'm then going to click on this again, and I can then move it by itself onto the page, which is great. Okay, so next, this is looking fantastic, this is looking fantastic. What I'm going to do is, I just want to make sure that all of this is grouped together, so it's one item. Actually, no, we're not going to do that just yet, because we're going to alter it a little bit more. So next, what we want to do is, you know what, these are annoying me a little bit. So let's have a look. Okay, let's go Object, and then Unlock All, which will unlock these bits that we actually locked originally, so we can now edit them. My small selection tool, you can keep these in if you want. I'm just going to delete them. So we go small selection tool, select them, delete, 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 delete. Small selection tool, backspace, 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 which is delete, delete. So these are our new blocks, looking gorgeous. It's also a good idea to save it as you go along. So let's go File, Save As, and let's go back to our desktop. Skate address. I'm going to call this not cutting table. I'm going to call it Francesca Skater Pattern. Good idea to save your work as you go along, just in case you lose it. And let's just click Save. And then just click, this is fine, forget about this, just click OK. So that's now saved, and this has now been renamed. Alright, so next, what we want to do is basically transfer this dart into the top to create that pleat. So as you can see, let's go in a little bit. Here we go. So these gorgeous little pleats, essentially what we want to do is remove the dart from the bottom and add it into the top. So when we basically close this block, we have this really lovely pleat. So let's do that now. Although saying that, this is a very good time to add our facing. So a facing is essentially a separate bit of material that's obviously the same as your garment, or the same material, but it goes on the inside of your block. And what it does is it creates, let's say, a beautiful, so normally you'd have a raw edge here and a raw edge here when you construct your block. But obviously we don't want a raw edge, we want a nice seamed edge. So we have to create a facing. And you can obviously do a little bit of research about facings. We also have a tutorial that shows you how to do them as well, but I'm just going to do them very quickly here. So if you have no idea about what I'm talking about, that's okay, just follow along with this tutorial and we'll explain it. So to create a facing, before we actually do our dart manipulation, I'm basically going to select this block. Sorry, let's group these. Sorry, big selection tool, select this whole area, object, group. Let's go to the other one, big selection tool, select the whole area, object, group. I'm basically going to select both of these blocks together. I'm going to go edit, copy, and I'm going to make a duplicate of them and paste. There we go, side by side. Much easier than just tracing that out, almost instantaneous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a facing. And to do that, I'm simply going to go to my pen tool. So on this block here, forgetting about this one, on this new facing block, I'm going to get my pen tool. I'm going to click, hold pen tool. I'm going to start my facing, let's say, here on the back, and I'm going to end it pretty much just below the bust line. And there we go. That's my new provisional line. Looking great. So what I'm going to do is, next I'm going to shape this facing, just to make it a little bit smoother and prettier. So I'm going to go to my pen tool, I'm going to go to an anchor point tool, I'm going to click on this point, I'm going to drag it out to about there, let's say, holding down the shift key so it constrains to the horizontal, like that. There we go. And I'm also going to make it so it's 90 degrees from here, and it's going to be 90 degrees pretty much from there. Okay, lovely. Okay, next I'm going to find the distance from this point to the bottom of my facing so I can add it to the front. Okay, because we want these to essentially match up when we join the facings. So I'm going to take my line tool, I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag until I meet that point. And as you can see, there's a little grey box left of it which says 2.75 centimeters. So I know the distance between this point and this point is 2.75 cm. If you're working with inches, you can always right click here and change your value if you want to. So I know that the distance from here to here is 2.75. I'm going to get my point. Let's just go over to my key. Let's just go edit, copy. Go back. I'm going to paste that point in, and then I'm just going to simply drag it and place it at that top of the side seam, just at the armhole. I'm then going to select it with my big selection tool. I'm going to hit the enter key, and I'm going to go 0 horizontal, but I'm going to go down by 2.75. I'm going to hit, I'll show you the preview, there you go, copy. Next I'm going to go to my rotation tool, I'm going to click on that point and rotate it until it meets the side seam. And so I know that the distance between there and there is 2.75. Perfect. Okay, so now we've marked the front. I'm then going to go to my pen tool, I'm going to click, click and hold to get the pen. I'm going to click on that point there, and I'm going to put it pretty much anywhere on my center front. Let's do it about here. It's up to you. I'm then going to, sorry, there we go, that's my provisional line. I'm then going to click on my pen tool, go to my anchor point, click and drag from the center front to create a nice 90-degree curve, like so. And then going to go to my anchor point tool again, and from the side seam, I'm going to do another 90-degree angle. Okay. So essentially when these two go together, we'll have a nice smooth curve over the side seam, we'll have a nice smooth curve at the front, and here, etc. Next, I'm just going to go to my big selection tool, get rid of these points because they're no longer needed. Click, delete. And that's pretty much my facing pattern. Okay, it's this top area here, and this is going to go on the inside of my block, and basically when the armholes and the neckline sewn together, it's going to give us a nice smooth curve, just like this. There you go, if you can see it, but that's a nice smooth edge, that's a nice smooth edge because it has a facing inside. Anyway, let's go back to our pattern. So next, I am going to get rid of all of this bottom area because I don't actually need this. This could essentially be a lining, but we're just using a facing. So I'm going to select this line here. I'm going to go to my cut tool, and I'm going to cut at this point and also at this point. Same for the front. I'm going to select my line, go to the cut tool, cut at that point, and cut at that point. Next, let's go to the bottom block. I'm just going to select the whole thing and then hit delete a few times for the front, delete a few times, and there's our facing. You might have seen this on some sewing patterns. So next we want to consolidate these blocks because look, they're not actually joined. So I'm going to get my small selection tool. I'm going to select over these 2 points. Make sure you don't get in that point as well. Just these 2 points. And I'm going to join. Same for the front. Select those 2 points. Join. It's the small selection tool we're using to do this. Same for the front. Join. Select those 2 points. Right click. Join. And then next, this block has been selected. I'm going to use my dropper tool. There we go, get that color. Now once again, if we've just edited it, they're always going to be up the layers. So I'm going to select this block with my big selection tool, and then going to go Object, Arrange, oops, Center Back, Object, Arrange, Center Back. Smashing. Okay, now we've got a few bits and pieces that are falling off these patterns here that we just don't need. So the bust line, that can disappear because it doesn't fall on our block. Bust point, that can go. It's a small selection tool, select the item, hit delete a few times. Same with this one, delete a few times. Delete, select, delete, select, delete. Now we do want our grain line. This is very important. So what I'm going to do is, it's a little bit too short at the moment, or it's too long for the block. I'm going to get my small selection tool, click over these 2 points, click and drag, and hold down the shift key so it locks to that vertical. There you go. Move it up. Perfect. So it's on our block. Small selection tool, click and drag over those 2 points, hold down the shift key, click and drag. Well, that didn't work. Small selection tool, click and drag, and then shift key locks it into place. So we can also start to rename this as well. So here we've got bodice block back panel. This can be back facing panel. Yeah. And to do that, sorry, that wasn't very clear. All you do is go to your small selection tool, double click, and you see it brings up the text tool, or it allows you to edit that bit of text. Let's go facing. And if you want to move it, click off with your small selection tool, click, and then you can just drag. There you go, you can drag it anywhere. Click and drag. There we go. You can even nudge it. So arrow keys on your keyboard, you can nudge it around as well. Great, that's our facing done. Looking really nice. Okay. So next, I'm just going to save it. Just save as you go. Next, we're going to rotate this dart from here all the way up until it comes to the top here. So we're removing the dart from the bottom and adding it in the top so we can create this really beautiful pleat detail on the front and back. Okay, and to do that, let's start off with our front block. So here I'm going to get the small selection tool. I'm going to go down to this bust point, and I'm simply going to drag this dart up. And the reason why we're doing this is because the bust point is our rotation point. So essentially we need to, well, you'll see in a minute. It's hard to explain. Just simply get your small selection tool, click on this point, drag it up to the bust point, and then next we're going to separate this block. But first of all, okay, so let's have a look at our illustration or our sample image here. So I'm going to say that's roughly probably about 7 or 8 centimeters along from the center front. Now you can do it less. It's completely up to you where your dart points go. You could have them literally coming from the center front like that. You could maybe have them coming from the side neck point. It's completely up to you where you have them. But I'm going to say, right, I'm going to measure from the center front out, and I'm going to go, okay, I want my pleat to be about 4.5 cm, no, 4 centimeters from the center front. So let's just grab a point with a big selection tool. Let's click that. Let's go, all right, edit copy is actually Command C for me, and then to paste it is Command V. So that's a much quicker way of doing it. So Control C, Control V. Next I'm going to drag that point to my center front at the neck point. And here I'm going to go, right, I want the pleat to be about 4 centimeters along this line. So I'm going to select that item with my big selection tool, hit the enter key, and I'm going to go -4 horizontally backwards and 0 vertically down, and we can preview that. There you go. Let's just hit copy. And next I'm going to go, right, rotation tool, click on the rotation tool, click on that center point, rotate it around until it meets the neckline. Lovely. Okay. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, right, let's do the same on the back. Okay. Let's have it. I haven't got it on my on this one here. As you can see, there is no dart. It's simply down here. But for this tutorial, I'm going to put in a dart similar with the front. So I'm going to get my point, copy, paste it in. I'm then going to move it to the center back. Let's zoom in. I'm going to say, right, well, I want it to be about 7 cm along this line. I can measure it, but I'm going to guess it by eye for now. I'm going to go, ooh, hang on, cancel. Okay. I'm just going to hit the enter key. Okay, it's because it's previewing. So here I'm going to go 7 cm horizontal and 0 vertically, and we can preview that. There it is, but we obviously want to get it on this line, and we'll rotate it in a minute. So let's just go copy. Next, I'm going to go to rotation tool and click, and I'm going to rotate. It's just essentially measuring along this line. So I know the distance between these 2 points is roughly 7 centimeters, which is great. So now I have the areas where my 2 pleats are going to be, which is great. So let's work on the front first of all. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my small selection tool. I'm going to select my block. I'm going to get my cut tool. I'm going to cut at that point because I'm separating the block, and I'm going to cut at the bust point as well. So as you can see, this side piece is now separate from the right piece, or the left is separate from the right. I now want to, let's say, consolidate this block to make it one separate item. So I'm going to go to my Pathfinder and Unite. Okay, you can find Pathfinder by going Window, Pathfinder, clicking that, it'll open it up, and it should look like 2 squares overlapping. Click on that, and then go Unite. What it does is basically it joins that block. It makes it one item. So if I was to move it out, you'd see it's one separate piece. Same for the front, or for the right hand side. I'm going to get my small selection tool, click, Unite. There we go. So you've now got 2 separate blocks, which can essentially change and rotate, which is great. Now if you wanted to, you could even do this. You'd have that on the front. Anyway, we have a tutorial about dart manipulation. Anyway, let's go back to what we were actually doing. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, so we now have shouldn't have done that. We now have a right piece and we have a left piece. But that's great, but essentially what I want to do now is open up the dart at the top here and close it at the bottom. So to do that, I want to rotate this whole left panel around the bust point until this dart closes. But also I want to take some information with me, because at the moment all we've got is this point, or this block. So if I close that, we're going to lose some information, like the armhole notch and also the bust line, and also this information. So we want to make sure that it's all coming with us. So to do that, we go to our large selection tool. Let's click on this block. Now all of it is grouped. Let's go to Object and then Ungroup. So if I click on it, you can now see, no, hang on, it's still grouped. So let's click on this. Let's go Object, Ungroup. So they now should all be independent items, which they are. I want to basically now go to my big selection tool, click and drag over the whole of the left piece, trying not to get any of the information from the right. And I'm going to go Object, Group. Same for the right piece. I'm going to select over all of the items. Maybe I can't get everything in, so I'm going to hold down my Shift key and click and queue up and add those selections. Then we're going to go Object, Group. Okay, so now we have two separate groups, and you can see it's taking the information with it. I mean, we don't have the bus point in there, but I'm not too bothered by that. Let's just get rid of it. Okay, so they're now two separate items, which means we can now rotate this really easily. So I'm going to click on this left panel. I'm going to go to the rotation tool. I'm going to click on that bus point, and I'm just going to simply click and drag until those two lines don't overlap. That's going to be a problem. You want to make sure they touch, just like that. Okay, really important. So I've now opened up that pleat on the top of the bodice, which is great, which essentially creates, where is it? Which creates this concept here. So when we close that, we'll have that beautiful pleat at the top. But once again, these are two separate blocks. So what I want to do is go to my small selection tool. Let's just click on this line here. Let's go to the pen tool, click and hold, add anchor point tool, click on that line to add a point, go to your small selection tool, click and drag. These have to overlap, essentially. So then when we use the unite, they actually join. If, for example, it wasn't, and I click the unite, you see we have this really weird little object here. So essentially, you just want to make sure these lines overlapped. And we can't just drag it over like that, because that would cause an issue with our dart. We add a point in a space where they can overlap. We get our small selection tool, we find that point, click and drag so they overlap. And then we select both blocks and we unite. Once again, this brings everything to the top. So we just want to, let's go big selection tool, select that item, object, arrange, center back. There we go, boom, lovely. Next, I just want to, let's see, is it all grouped? No, some elements are not grouped. Just go big selection tool, click and drag, object, group. There we go. So now that's one finished pattern piece looking really nice. Also, let's just get the small selection tool and get rid of these points. We don't really need them anymore. There we go. So for the back panel, I'm going to do pretty much exactly the same thing. So I found where I want my pleat to be. I'm going to go to the cut tool. I'm just going to cut, and I'm going to cut here. So we now have a left panel and we have a right panel that are separate. Get my small selection tool, select the right piece, go to my pathfinder. I'm going to unite that block. I'm going to click on the left one. I'm going to unite that block. So now they're two separate blocks entirely. And then I want to do the whole grouping thing again. So let's just select this block. So big selection tool, select any item on that area, object, ungroup. There we go. There we go. Let's just move this over to this side perhaps for now. Well, actually no, let's put it here so it's a little bit cleaner. Then I'm just going to select my big selection tool. I'm going to select this whole left panel. Okay, look, we have a line that is, it's the bus line, and it's used for both panels here. I want to basically separate this off so it doesn't come with us. Also, so let's just, I'll show you. So if I take this and then I rotate that dart closed, like so, we lose the bus line here. So we want to make sure these are two separate items. So go to your small selection tool, click on that line, go to the cut tool, and then just cut, snip. And now they're two separate items. And there's a little bit in the middle as well. You can probably get rid of that if you wanted to. So now I'm going to go to my big selection tool. I'm going to group all of this, object, group. I'm going to go all the way to the right hand side, object, group. Two separate pattern pieces, which is looking awesome. And then I'm just going to select the left with my big selection tool. I'm going to go to rotate tool, click on that point because that's our point of rotation, and then just close that block. Oh, you know what? I've done it wrong. You always want to make sure that if you have a fold line here, the grain always aligns up. So we're actually rotating this panel. So let's just rotate that closed. There we go. So essentially we maintain that fold line with the grain like this, for example. Okay, so always rotate this block in. So now we have our lovely new pleat. Let's just get rid of those points. Let's zoom in. This grain line is not working anymore because essentially the grain line is our fold line. So all we do is get our small selection tool and we can just delete these points. There we go. We can then go over to the front, small selection tool, click on this line, hold down the shift key, click on the next line to queue it up. Next line, then go edit, copy, edit, paste. And then we can just simply drag it onto our block. See how it's parallel to the center back? Perfect. And that's the grain line of our material. Okay, so we just now need to consolidate these two blocks. So once again, go to your pen tool, go to add anchor point, click anywhere in this little space between these 2 points, small selection tool, click and drag so they overlap. Get your small selection tool, click and drag over both those pattern pieces, and then go overlap. Oh, sorry, unite. Next, we've lost some information, as you can see here. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this piece, small selection tool. Oops. Click that item, object, arrange, center back. That didn't work. Go to your big selection tool, click on that pattern piece, object, arrange, center back. Boom, there you go. Perfect. Okay, so those are our 2 pattern pieces finished for the bodice block. There is just one thing. So obviously, as you can see here, this is a different pattern piece. The reason why is when this is closed, it will look like this, essentially, and so the facing works. However, what we need to do, what's probably a good idea, is mark on the facing where this pleat is going to come in line, okay? And to do that, we're just going to get our pen tool, sorry, not a pen tool, oops. We're going to get our line tool. I'm just going to measure the distance from here to here, so click and drag. It's 4.1 centimeters, which means, let's have a look, on the front panel here, we want to put a notch at 4.1 centimeters away from the center front. So let's go and get a point, copy that point, paste that point, place it at the center front, then use the enter key on your keyboard, -4, horizontal, 0 vertical, hit copy. Then we go to our rotation tool, click and rotate until it falls on that neckline. Smashing. We're going to do the same for the back now. So this, I believe it was 7 centimeters. Let's just get a line. Click on that line, click the line tool, click and drag. 7.01. I'm going to call that 7 centimeters. It's the same thing again. I'm going to paste in that point, just there. I'm going to place it on my center back. Enter key. 7 cm, vertical 0, hit copy, and I'm just going to go to my rotation tool, click on that point, rotate it up until it meets the neckline, and that is essentially the notch where that pleat, when closed, will fall on the facing. Let's get rid of these points, don't need them, and let's also mark that point with a notch. So this is, you see these are notches, this basically allows your bodice block to align with your sleeve block. These points are also located on the sleeve block. So we're simply just putting this point in to show us, so let's put that point in there. And I'm going to give you an overview of this in a minute, just to explain it. Let's put that point there. Get rid of that existing one. There we go. Let's also replace it here as well. There we go. So this is basically where our pleats are going to line up. So if I just take this block here now and I place it on top of my facing, there you go. As you can see, that notch has been marked perfectly. Same with the back. Let's take this piece. Let's just group that, sorry. Take this piece, move it over. There we go. As you can see, pretty much spot on. Well, it is spot on. It's digital pattern coding Adobe Illustrator. It's definitely spot on. Okay, perfect. So now we have our facing pattern, and we have our actual bodice pattern, and we have our pleats, which is gorgeous. So next, what we want to do is basically add some, let's say, there's not much we need to do to this skater block or to the skater dress, because, I mean, it is what it is. It just simply attaches to the waistline. And you could even use this just as a top by itself. It could be quite cute. So here, all we're going to do is we're just going to mark some points so that we can actually attach it to the skirt block. Attach this to the bodice block. So let's go down. Let's have a look at our skirt block, the full circle skirt. So as you can see, these are the side seams. You've got left side seam, right side seam. This would be the front. And then if you were to create another one of these, so like that. Bear with me, you don't need to do this. This is just an example. So that creates our full skirt block. Yeah. This is our side seam, and this is our side seam. Now, if you remember, we do not have a back opening or a front opening. We have a side opening. So essentially our zip will go along here and then up the side of our block. But it would be really helpful for us to know where the front is and where the back is, and also where the side seam is, just when it comes to attaching it to our bodice. So what I'm going to do is, let's just zoom in a little bit. I'm going to paste in one of those notches. Yeah? So here's my notch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place one at the side seam. I know it's pretty obvious where the side seam is, but let's just put it on there anyway for consistency. I'm also going to put one at the center front. Where is it? There you go. That's the center front. You can click on it just to make absolutely sure. There you go. Let's draw a line. Let's just make sure that's the center front. There you go. Center front. I'm going to mark a notch at the center front, and I'm also going to mark a notch at the side seam. Oops. There you go. Keep it consistent. Great. So what happens now is I know that, for example, this point here and this point here will be this point to this point. And obviously the opposite side, this point to this point, will be this point to this point. Okay, and on the back it will be exactly the same as well. So now we have a better way of basically lining those blocks up. Alright, so now before we finish this part of the tutorial, I'm just going to consolidate my blocks, make sure everything's looking good. So let's just use my big selection tool here. Let's just select over this entire panel with all of the information included, go Object. Okay, it's already grouped, as you can see it's been grayed out, so that's great. Let's go to this one here. Click and drag, make sure you don't get the key involved or anything else involved. Object, that's grouped as well, good. This one, now I know this isn't grouped. Object, there you go, group. Object, group. Okay, so now our pattern is pretty much finished off. The only thing left to do now is either you can take a look at our other design tutorials, like necklines or sleeves, for example, which will show you how to maybe add a different sleeve type or a different neckline to basically customize your pattern further. However, if you feel like your pattern is finished, then I would say the best thing to do is head on over to a different tutorial, which is how to add seam allowance to your finished pattern. There's a download link at the bottom of this tutorial, which should take you to that. It's very, very informative, very, very easy as well. And also, when you've added your seam allowance, it's probably a good idea to have a look at how to transfer your digital pattern to a multi-page PDF using our templates. And we have a tutorial that shows you how to do that also. And once again, you can find that at the bottom of this page as a tutorial link. Otherwise, thank you so much, and see you soon.